Well, thank you all for coming this afternoon. My name is Shanta Sussman. Before we start, we want to begin with a land acknowledgement. And so I'm going to invite up Esli Amaya from Indigenous Women Rising, which was the 2023 ALBA Puffin Human Rights Award winner. Indigenous Women Rising is an organization committed to honoring Native and Indigenous peoples' inherent right to equitable and culturally safe health options through accessible health education, resources, and advocacy. Esli, will you come up?
Thank you. Nashki, Nareta, Ninaskwa, Ninaskwata, Kagayan, Ninakwi, Esli, Jinoki, Hurani. My name is Esli, and I am a program director at Indigenous Women Rising, a Pueblo-led reproductive sovereignty org. I am a descendant of Purepecha and other northern native nations. Before we go forward, let us call in our sacredness. Guniechekwa, Creator, Nana Echi, our Mother Earth, we give thanks. From the east, we call Jinakni, the wind. May our words carry truth. From the south, we call Diriski, the fire. May our spirits burn with justice. And from the west, we call Hata, the water. May our grief and love flow together. From the north, we call Gumachakwa, the earth. May we walk with humility and strength. And we stand in the center, Inadakwa, with a heart. Here, all our relations, we remember. We are not above the land, we are with the land. May our steps be prayers, may our resistance be medicine, may our liberation be shared. Jirakwi Unipekwa for the strength of us all. I have medicine from Southern Paiute territories and Nuuvi people, and I ask everyone to take a minute to stand in their heart, in their soul, in their mind. Close your eyes if you want, but take this moment to ground with the earth. Thank you. And before we move on to the celebration, we must also ground ourselves in truth in a land acknowledgement. As we gather here today on stolen Mohican and Lenape lands, these aren't just names and scripts, these are sovereign nations who have survived displacement, forced erasure, and genocide. Nations whose descendants are still here and still fighting for what is theirs. A land acknowledgement, when left at words, serve only to soothe settler guilt. They often benefit us, privileged to live, work, and thrive on lands we did not inherit through a stewardship connection, but through systems of colonization. Moving beyond performance, redistribute your resources directly to the people whose land you occupy. And understand this, Indigenous nations hold ancestral knowledge of land, water, and climate that no outsider of non-native can ever fully comprehend. We know this because no one outside of our own communities could ever understand the relation to our homelands. Land acknowledgements without action are useless. We cannot stop the rising tide of fascism without returning the power to the people who have never relinquished their rights to the land or life. It is the only real path to climate justice, to community safety, and to a future rooted in abundance instead of extraction. With love and intention, we must acknowledge all settler colonial violence globally and stand with all our relatives facing genocide. Our liberation is intertwined. As settler colonialism knows no borders, and neither does our resistance. Land back, liberation, and life. With that, I give deep thanks to ALBA and the Puffin Foundation for inviting Indigenous Women Rising back. And we keep our work sustained and supported with platforms, and I hope it continues to model what meaningful Indigenous leadership and solidarity can look like. Thank you, Bani.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to the 15th annual ALBA Puffin Human Rights Award ceremony. As I said, my name is Shanta Sussman, and I am a granddaughter of Bill Sussman, who was one of the founders of ALBA. I'm so pleased to be with you here today, not just as a but as a brand new board member. Woohoo! Since I just started on the board about 10 minutes ago, I had no say in choosing this year's ALBA Puffin Human Rights Award recipient, but it is exactly who I would have chosen. Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, or JFREJ community. This inspirational organization has been holding it down in New York City since 1990. I first became aware of them about 10 years ago through their work supporting domestic workers and fighting police brutality. After October 7th, 2023, as Israel's genocide intensified, JFREJ became a lifeline for Jews like me who felt alienated by the conflation of Judaism and Zionism and wanted a way to feel connected to our Jewish culture while standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people and oppressed people all around the world. For us, for my grandfather and so many Jewish brigadistas just like him, being Jewish is rooted in social justice. I'm so proud to be a member of JFREJ, and you're going to hear more from them soon. This cash award of $100,000 would not be possible without the generous support of the Puffin Foundation, represented here today by their president, Neil Rosenstein. Neil, thank you so, so much. Now I want to acknowledge all the ALBA board members in attendance today. If you could just stand or wave so folks can see you. Thank you all. And you may have seen Peter Miller and his crew, he's a board member and noted filmmaker, are recording this event to share with others later. So thank you for all of you to come here and do that. And of course, we are incredibly grateful to the ALBA staff, who worked tirelessly to create this event. So thank you so much to Mark Wallum, Dennis Meany, Marina Mihalyova, Jordan Watkins. Thank you for everything that you do. ALBA preserves the legacy of the Lincoln Brigade as an inspiration for all generations. As we look toward the future to continue ALBA's mission, it's important to remember those who are no longer with us. In the last year, ALBA lost many good friends, and we'd like to observe a moment of silence for them. These friends include Michael Bailey, Peter Carroll, Barbara Dane, Shirley Mangini, and Naomi Rucker. Before we begin our moment of silence, I want to ask if there are any other ALBA friends that we should acknowledge and honor alongside those names. Okay, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd like to now call to the stage Aaron Reddish to give a tribute to the Jewish veterans of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Aaron is just finishing his first term as ALBA board chair. He is the author of several books on revolutionary Russia and is a professor of Russian history at Wayne State University, where he also oversees the Abraham Lincoln Brigade Veterans Scholarship Program. For ALBA, he has served as treasurer, president of the jury for the George Watt Essay Contest for many years, and co-editor of The Volunteer. Aaron?
Welcome, everyone. We're happy to be able to honor Jews for racial and economic justice today. Their justice work here in New York is very important, especially at this critical time. The JFREJ community has fought for democracy and equality here and connects their struggle internationally. Defending justice at home and abroad connects directly to the legacy of the Lincoln Brigade. And today, we would like to highlight the roles of Jews in the fight against fascism. Jews made up a significant portion of the Lincoln Brigade, according to some counts pointing as high as a third of volunteers. Yiddish sometimes was the lingua franca to communicate between different national units. The Puffin company, the Polish Dąbrowski Battalion, was made up almost entirely of Yiddish speakers. With this presentation, we plan to draw on Joe Butwin's Salud y Shalom, a work dedicated to exploring the experience of Jews in the Lincoln Brigade. By providing brief biographies and interview excerpts from 5 prominent Jewish members of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, we hope to illustrate how the stories of the Lincoln Brigade connect to Jewish activism today. So the first volunteer is George Watt. Thank you. Who is a student activist in New York City. First as a socialist, then as a communist, before he went to Spain. As a leader of the National Student League, he found himself encouraging other young people to go to Spain. Watt, describing how he saw himself in the international anti-fascist movement, said, "I came from a Jewish secular tradition, but Jewish, very distinctly Jewish. But when we went to Spain, we saw ourselves primarily as internationalists. We internalized this feeling of internationalism, that we were citizens of the world. When Eugene Debs was in prison, I remember his famous quote when he lost his citizenship in jail. He said, "I am a citizen of the world." And that's how we saw ourselves. We did see ourselves subjectively as internationalists. Everyone was my brother and sister. And when we went to Spain, we tried to see and feel that they were Spaniards, not Jews primarily. Nevertheless, who we were and what led us to this had a lot to do with it, in the case of those of us who were Jews. George Watt, like many of his comrades in Spain, fought fascism twice, first in Spain and then in the European War, which began in September of 1939, just 6 months after the fall of the Spanish Republic. Bill Sussman went to Spain as Bill Ellis. He grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where his family spoke Yiddish, and where he went to the Yiddish Schule, where biblical stories and Yiddish folk tales were taught as parables of class struggle. His family was heavily involved in Jewish left-wing culture and politics, which shaped his understanding of the world. Bill dropped out of school and in 1934 became an organizer of the labor movement, taking key roles in several important strikes and organizing actions. This work and his commitment to his values led him to Spain. Bill was an important recruiter of the international brigades, particularly in Puerto Rico. He arrived with his volunteers in 1937 and served with distinction. When pressed on why he went to Spain, he answered, "And if you asked me why I went to Spain, I would tell you I was born to go to Spain, because with this background, there was nothing else in my future to do than precisely that." Sana Goldblatt, born on Delancey Street in the Lower East Side in 1915, had been coming to Union Square for rallies since she was 14. She graduated from high school in 1931 and worked hard in the needles trade at $5 or $6 a week until 1933. That year, she began training as a nurse at Beth Israel Hospital and joined the Young Communist League. She was meeting with other student nurses to discuss politics and to organize a union when the director of nursing at Beth Israel called in the FBI to investigate the union, and then, on the basis of her political action, refused to recommend Sana for further training. Sana had wanted to study psychiatric nursing at the famous Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas. Instead, she stayed in New York and went to train at Bellevue Hospital. When asked about how she joined the medical mission to Spain, she said, "You read the literature and you know what was going on. How to apply? There was an ad in the Daily Worker, a place to go or call or see, and so I just went down there and joined." Celia Sobor, a lab technician and then a nurse, was the first woman to volunteer for service in Spain. She joined her husband, the journalist George Marion, in Madrid shortly after he arrived in August 1936. The fight to stop the fascist coup was barely 2 weeks old when she arrived. She worked first with the Canadian Dr. Norman Puffin, a pioneer in blood transfusions, and then as a nurse, where she received the first of the wounded from the Battle of Jarama in February 1937. When asked about why she joined the medical mission, she said, "My husband was a journalist. He left New York on August 1st, was one of the first people to go to Spain after the war broke out in mid-July. He went for the Daily Worker. My feeling was that I was unemployed. It was during the Depression. It was important. If he could go, I could surely go too." Abe Asheroff was born in New York in 1915. Growing up as the son of Russian Jewish immigrants in the working class neighborhood, Asheroff was introduced to social and political activism at an early age. At 15, during the height of the Depression, Asheroff was recruited by local leftists to carry the furniture of evicted tenants back into their apartments. After a confrontation with the police over these actions, Asheroff became a well-known radical in his community. He joined the Communist Party, rose quickly through its ranks, went to Pennsylvania to help organize local miners. In 1937, like many young radicals, Asheroff joined the Lincoln Brigade. When asked why he went to Spain, he said, "So to me, going to Spain was good judgment. For me, going to Spain was closing a gap that had appeared in myself as a person, which was tearing me apart. It had nothing to do with courage. I don't believe much in that business of courage and valor because in some ways it may be said that the greater enemy was staying home, and I didn't have the guts to face up to that. It's a very funny way to put it, but for me, going to Spain was easier than staying home. You won't find many vets who agree with that. They went to fight fascism. Well, fascism was only a concept for me at that time. I didn't have the slightest idea, a real one, until I saw it. These remarkable individuals all show the contributions Jews made to the fight against fascism in the 20th century. Many saw their Jewish background as one of the motivating factors to participate in the struggle. These Jewish anti-fascists understood fork-tongued politicians who said that they supported Jews while imposing quotas on immigration, quotas on universities, and promoting anti-Semitism. They all saw themselves as internationalists, not just as Jews, driven to fight against anti-Semitism, authoritarianism, and for social justice at home and internationally. We can clearly see that organizations like the J. French community continue that legacy. We're honored to celebrate them today and to try to live out the legacy of the veterans of the Spanish Civil War. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, so now we have the pleasure of hearing from two former recipients of the ALBA Puffin Award for Human Rights Activism. Dr. June Gibson is president and CEO of My Brother's Keeper, Inc. in Mississippi, which works to improve public and community health nationwide through research, policy, direct services, and cross-sector collaboration. Dr. Shannon Poe is the Director of Programming and Services for Life After Hate, a leader in violence intervention that helps individuals disengage from violent far-right hate groups and online spaces. Dr. Gibson, will you come first?
It is so great to be here, to see familiar faces, to see new faces, and to learn about the new awardees. I come to this event every year to stay in touch with where we're going next and who ALBA and the Puffin Foundation are actually looking at, because you seem to know something that we don't. You understand more about the system, and you pick people who are at the right moment of needing your assistance. And having served as an awardee, I know that this event is very special. When I received a call from Kate, I'm not sure she's here today, but when I received a call from Kate in 2021 to tell me that we were just being considered for the award, when I got off the phone with her, I actually cried. Silent tears, you know, the tears that come with you out pushing, they just kind of roll down. And if you had asked me at that moment why I was crying, I don't think I would have been able to tell you. But as I navigate this horrendous terrain of the U.S. politics, I know now that those were tears of pride that I had. That for the first time, someone saw us. And if you've never been invisible, you don't know what that feels like. But when someone sees you for who you are and what you do, we're not just a box that we're just checking marks, but we're real people living real lives, and we're providing basic human rights. And ALBA, you saw us. And you knew that giving me the organization and these other organizations this platform that strengthened us will take us far and beyond what we thought. So now, as I sit back and feel as if the things I do are under attack on a daily basis, I lean back into those feelings that I felt with Kate. I lean back into the meal that I had at Steve's and Nancy's house. We had a good time. We really did. I lean back to the mark and talking to Peter and talking to Neil, and I know that I'm a member of a family of fighters, people who stood individually and collectively to fight for others, people who fought against systems and government. And I use these feelings as motivation to continue to fight and never to be invisible again. We will not be diminished. I use these feelings to remind myself that I'm connected to a passionate group of people who see the fragility in this. They see how systems work and how systems change, and you make it your business to uplift an organization every single year. And I'm honored to be a part of that process. Your strength is undeniable. And last year when you did the presentation and you talked about the members of ALBA, and I found out that ALBA, civil rights in Mississippi, it's like, where haven't you been? Who haven't you touched? And I was so inspired that when I left that meeting, I told Mark, I'm going to nominate you to be the 2024 champion for My Brother's Keeper. And for us, a champion is someone who stood by our side, who lifts us up, who ensures, who wants to make sure that we have a voice in the community. And it also led me this year to bring more people, because I need them to understand why I sing your praises. I need to understand what I feel when I'm here. And so Brandon, he's director of communication. You may have seen him over the years. But I also brought my CFO, Max McKinney, so that he could see it. And most importantly, I want you all to understand that the people that I partner with, the people who also see me, they need to see you. So I also have a representative from Gilead Pharmaceuticals, who's one of our biggest supporters. But I wanted her to know that there was another group of people in this world that sees beyond the chaos and actually wants to do right by others. So in closing, I often say that ALBA will be remembered for a lot of things. But it's your dedication to being on the right side of history that will create a permanent, joyous place in history. And I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to be a part of your greatness. Thank you.
I was not privileged to be with Life After Hate in 2022 when we received this award. But I can tell you the organization has spoken so highly of ALBA and Puffin since then. And they allowed me to come today to experience this community, and meeting everyone and seeing everyone has been such a hopeful reminder that we are not alone in this work. Because today in this society, it is very easy to forget that we're not alone and that we have people and that we are a community in the here and now. In 2022, Life After Hate was working with violent extremists, leaving hate groups and hateful spaces that they were in, through case managers and exit specialists who were formers themselves. But with this award, we were able to expand our reach to the friends and family members of those individuals as well. We started individual programming for them, but also a support group. Today, that work has expanded further to providing support groups for the men and women leaving violent extremist groups. And largely because of this, when we started one program, it went cascading one to another. We're seeing that need grow. In the past 30 to 60 days, our increased numbers have gone 35% higher than they were previously with people reaching out for help. And it's very difficult to see people asking and to have to put them on a wait list, but because of people like y'all and people like ALBA, we're able to do this work and to continue. So as I was losing hope maybe a week ago that we are alone in this work and the fight that we're doing, and in the society that we walk out to, in the friendly faces I came into today, and meeting everyone, and I think I have met almost everyone, I'm renewed in my spirit. Life After Hate has a saying for our work. We offer compassion with accountability. So I want to offer you those same words to go out and continue to do this work with compassion with accountability. But I am a social worker, so I would be remiss if I did not leave you with the statement that I also work with, which is just do good recklessly as well, every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gibson and Dr. Pope. Now I am happy to welcome Ava Mateo and Audrey Sasson to join us. They are the previous and current winners of the ALBA Puffin Prize for Human Rights Activism, respectively. We have invited them here to be in conversation with one another to discuss the importance and meaning of both of their works. While I do the introductions of both of you, maybe you can filter up onto these beautiful Merv Griffin chairs we have. Ava Mateo is a youth leader and advocate who has been recognized for her innovative methods of promoting youth civic engagement by the Aspen Institute, the Biden administration, Circle at Tufts, and more. Ava currently leads communications and impact efforts at Riley's Way Foundation. Prior to joining the Riley's Way team, she was the executive director of 18 by Vote, a youth-led organization that helped young and rising voters understand how, when, and why to vote. Ava has a master's degree in sociology and education with a concentration in education policy from Columbia University Teachers College, and 18 by Vote was the recipient last year. Audrey Sasson is the executive director of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. Prior to heading JFRED, she was an organizer with UFCW Local 888, working as the lead on Walmart Free NYC, a coalition of labor, community, faith, and small business groups. She also worked for close to 7 years at American Jewish World Service. In addition to a master's from the School for International and Public Affairs at Columbia, she earned 2 bachelor's degrees from McGill University, one in History and African Studies, the other in Social Work with a focus on community organizing. Audrey and Ava, take it away.
It is so meaningful to be here today, and Audrey, I am just so excited that JFRED has won this year. I'll just share a little bit about 18 by Vote and how meaningful receiving the award was last year. The support of the ALBA Puffin Award was truly transformational in our work. We actually have recently merged with another nonprofit called New Voters, and prior to doing that, the support that we received was truly transformational to our work and activating young voters last year during the 2024 election. And we were able to reach, hundreds of thousands of youth voters. Obviously, young voters have been experiencing a very interesting political environment, and activating and motivating them has been incredibly challenging. But the ways in which we've been able to invest directly in peer-to-peer contact and really deeply engage in meaningful work that is grounded in issue-based politics and identity-based politics has been central to the work that we do and the work that we now continue to do with New Voters. So I just want to give an enormous thank you to ALBA and the Puffin Foundation for your support in such a meaningful time for us. And it is so exciting to be here, and I turn it over to you, Audrey.
Thanks, Ava. Part of what's been so wonderful about this experience is getting to meet Ava and getting to meet other honorees. And I'm going to be a bit emotional up here. I'm just going to tell you that now. And I want to start also by saying just how incredibly moving it is to be in this room with you all. To be invited into this community of organizers and activists and anti-fascist history buffs and anti-fascist period. I've been thinking a lot since we learned about this award, just how I feel such a kismet connection to the brigades. And I'm feeling a lot of regret that I didn't get a chance to meet any of them while they were still with us. But I really feel the lineage in this room and in our work. We are really, really, truly grateful for this incredible honor and the generosity of this gift. People often say that Jews for Racial and Economic Justice punches above our weight, and that's something we take some pride in, but it also comes with a lot of stress. We do a lot with very little. I sometimes think about I was just talking to Sue about the People's Army and the ragtag ragtag army with the support that they received wasn't enough, and yet they did it anyway, and I just, for us, is sort of how we think about our work. Our members and our organizers are in the streets tirelessly, and we are people-powered, and that goes a really long way, but gifts of this size and the recognition and the support is incredibly transformational for us as well. So I just wanted to start by saying a huge, huge thank you. Thank you for that. All right, Ava, let's talk about this moment. As Ava and I have been prepping, it's obviously not lost on, I think, any of us that a year ago when Ava and 18 by Vote received the award, we were in a high stakes election year where everyone was talking about democracy being on the line. This is the election to win back our, to ensure that we protect and expand our democracy and keep the fascists at bay. And that's why it was so important to register as many people as possible. And so you had high pressure, to do that work. And I'm just curious if you could speak to what it feels like and what you think the call to action is now that we're on the other side of this moment, when we're really facing off against authoritarianism in a much higher stakes way. What does it mean to you as someone who organizes young people? What will it take to take back our democracy and to really win the future that we deserve?
Thank you for that question, Audrey. We've been having some really interesting conversations about this, and just in general, since the election, I've been reflecting enormously about the moment and the moments that we've been facing, and really the energy and where young people are and what they're feeling. And it's interesting, I was looking at actually what I had said last year during my remarks, and they really resonated the same. And I think that really what we are facing now is the same challenge that we were facing last year, last May. Obviously there's all of these new challenges with the authoritarianism and the government that we are dealing with and that is oppressing people every single day. But I think when it comes to young people, it's really the same challenge. We need to activate, energize, and mobilize young people in a way that is not happening in mass. The work that needs to be done is exactly the work that I believe JFREG is doing, is that it's grounded in issues, it's grounded in identity. And at 18 by Vote, we had the honor of doing some entirely youth-led research that actually found that the main way that young people want to be engaged and activated or in politics is through the issues that they care about most. So at 18 by Vote, we last year ran a campaign called #WhatIVoteFor, because we were not activating on democracy. We were activating on the issues that young people care about because we know that that's what gets them to the polls, but also what gets them beyond that. And gets them to continue to be activated during and beyond elections. And so that is why I was so excited to have JFREG and to learn, I've been following JFREG on Instagram for a long time. I'm going to become a member, which is very exciting. Something that's been so important to me in my work in democracy is my Jewish identity and, the legacy of civil rights activists. It was so inspiring to hear about the Jewish activists from ALBA and who were part of the brigades. And so, Audrey, I would love to hear about, what, I think really specifically, what does identity and issues and mean to you in the work that you do at JFREG?
Thanks, Ava. I wanna pick up on something you said about young people not voting for democracy. They vote for the issues that they vote for and the issues that are most important to them in their lives. And when Ava and I were having this conversation, I was really fixated on we're in a different political moment. We have to talk to that. We have to make sure we speak to that. And Ava was just well, yeah, except for young people for whom things are not changing, it doesn't make a difference. And you can't tell them to go out and vote for democracy. It's not going to help them. It's not going to speak to their immediate interests. When you think about what young people are up against right now, when you think about the economy, when you think about climate, when you think about wars and just endless wars, what is there for young people to fight for? And I think that is really, I really appreciated the agitation that you provided to me because I was so certain that we were going to definitely take the conversation in a very different direction. So thank you for your organizing and agitation. And I would say, for JFREG, the question of identity and organizing, it's a complicated one in some ways. In some ways it's very simple, in some ways it's complicated. And I think the story of George Watt actually that we started with speaks to that complicated relationship between identity and organizing for a future that includes everyone, right? So what does it mean to be deeply connected to who you are, where you come from, the experiences that shape you, the experiences that shape your previous generations and your lineage? What does it mean to hold on to that? It's incredibly grounding and incredibly important, no matter who you are or where you come from, to be able to access that history and that culture and that commitment to your people so to speak. But when you're an internationalist, when you're a humanist, your people is everyone. So how do you ensure that you're able to hold both of those things in a right-sized way that really inspires building that pluralistic future that we all need and deserve? And I think that that's a big part of how JFRED sort of is navigating these connections. And for us, of course, our Jewish history and our Jewish tradition informs our organizing and informs our activism. But we are really careful about essentializing that, right? It's not, it doesn't dictate your politics, right? Who you are in terms of your identity does not dictate your political orientation. And that's something that we have to cultivate. We have to do that not in silos, but in coalition with other groups across different. So the only way it works is if we're able to really be rooted in who we are, but we're also able to reach and build relationships with groups across difference so that we can build that multiracial future that we all need. So that's one thing I would say about that.
I love that. And that's been core to all of the work that I've done and had the opportunity to do in the youth voting space, is really thinking about how do you work together. And one of the things that we were talking about, you know, working across communities, the importance of doing that and how you can do that, both be connected by shared identity, but also bridge together by difference, and also by connection and by values, I think is huge in this work and in organizing work. And I think that's really what young people want, and what I really think a lot about with this work, and it's something that it's been really fun for us to talk about previously, is, you know, what is the role of intergenerational work? It's another form of connection. It's another form of working across communities. And you know, since I've been in the youth voting space since 2020, which obviously was an interesting time to be activated, particularly around voting. But what I've really noticed is, you know, since the election in 2024, young people have been, they're being blamed. They're being, you know, people are feeling like, you know, why didn't young people show up? Why aren't young people showing up now for protests, for rallies? You know, it seems like young people are feeling, you know, not activated, or they're not engaged. And I think that one of the things that I've really sat a lot on and really reflected on is, well, where is the intergenerational work? Where are people being called in and given a platform in not always equal, but, you know, in equitable ways in relation to their elders and to other people of different ages, and how can we, you know, work together to create the world that we want to live in? And it's been super exciting to kind of hear about the work that JFRED has been doing on that. So I'd love it, Audrey, if you could share.
Thanks, Ava. Again, this has been so illuminating, because when Ava told me that has been such a big part of your experience around the blaming of young people, it resonated. Of course, there's a blaming of any group that's been disenfranchised in a way, right? If they've been disenfranchised because the systems and the government and the powers that be are not actually meeting their needs and and their material needs, their spiritual needs, in so many other ways, they're gonna potentially opt out, and that's not because we can't be blaming them for opting out when they have not been given anything to vote for, to be in relationship to. JFRED I think I want to give a shout out to our founding members and members who are in the room. If maybe folks want to raise their hand, founders, founding members. We are consistently inspired by the efforts that our elders and our founders and people who came before us at JFRED have. They've instilled in us a discipline and a rigor and a vision for a just future that we take very seriously. Our first executive director of blessed memory, Melanie K. Kantrowitz, is someone whose work we lift up all the time. And it's really important to us to learn from the past. We learn from the previous movements. All of our founding members and people who were involved in the 80s before JFRED was established were involved in either ACT UP or in international solidarity, right? So there's so much, and the anti-apartheid movement, there's so much that we look to them to teach us and to help us understand this political moment. our work to engage young people has been harder. That's something that we really want to improve on, and we have been improving on, and we know how valuable it is. And when we have done it, it has been incredibly powerful. And so we do try. We've been building sort of a movement that is intergenerational. We consider ourselves that, and we know that everybody, depending on where they are in the sort of like in the lifespan, has a different vantage point that we need to listen to and that we need to see. And young people see things that our elders miss, and our elders see things that, or know things that we don't, that we need to learn from. And that's a value at JFRED, and we take it very seriously. To tie it to the brigades, when you think about how young the brigades were, they knew what they saw, and they knew that the threats were there, and they took brave, courageous, or not courageous action, and they did that because they could see things that others wouldn't see. And we need to remember that today when the students in the encampments are screaming and trying to get our attention to let us know we need to end this genocide. We have to listen to them, and I have so much gratitude for those who are speaking out. JFRED included, but beyond JFRED, young people across this country are speaking out and telling us what they need, and we need to listen to them.
And I'll just say, you know, something that I found so inspirational about the ALBA community is also the intergenerational. Everything about ALBA feels intergenerational. I think from your board, which is intergenerational, to every event that I've or dinner that I've been able to attend, and I think that is, you are intergenerational activism and advocacy in action, and that is so powerful.
All right, yeah. So with that, I want to move into hope, potentially, or rather, we have discovered a new word that we want to share with you all. We all know despair. Everyone's heard of despair. We've all experienced it. Perhaps maybe I shouldn't speak in we statements, but recently I was watching a little TikTok video of the hands-off actions, people out in the streets, and Catherine, I don't know her last name, Mandy Patinkin's wife, was out in the street at a hands-off rally, and she was really excited about this new word she had come across called respair. I don't know if you guys have heard of respair. Does anyone know what respair means? Respair is when you're able to recover from despair. So what does it take to recover from despair? I've been thinking a lot about that because apparently this word is no longer in usage in the English language. So I don't know what that says about our times, but I think Catherine is trying to get us to like take it back, and I would like to do that with you and with everyone in this room. So what would it take to recover from despair, and what is bringing each of us hope right now, if that's possible? So do you want to kick us off?
I would love to. And you know, when Audrey introduced this word to me, I was so excited, and it came. We really were talking about, you know, everything that's happening in the world right now, everything that's happening in this country right now, and really what I've been sitting with is that we need to focus on hope. If we want young people to believe in their future, if we want young people to reimagine our future, we need to hope, and we need to find our respair. And so I would say that, you know, in terms of what is bringing me respair in this moment is the young people that I get to work with and the young people that lead the work that I get to participate in. They are incredibly resilient. They keep going. They're, you know, with new voters, we have voter registration drives running in high schools across the country. There are elections happening, you know, every single year, and young people know that. They know that our democracy is still existing for now, but they're trying to find ways to work within and outside of the system to build power, and that is incredibly inspiring and inspirational to me, and is truly what keeps me going every single day. And what I'll also say is the other work that I get to do, I get to work with young leaders who are actually leading projects in their own communities, and the projects are based in kindness and empathy, and they have the most innovative ideas for finding ways to make a better world. And what's been so exciting to me about being honored from ALBA is everything that we do is really grounded in learning from the past. We actually run programming that is learning about the civil rights movement, learning about, different ways that young people have taken action and have built power. And I think seeing the inspiration that comes from that, from young people, and the ways that they are learning and innovating and finding new ways to create change is truly what gives me despair. Audrey, what about you?
Yeah, it's funny. At the end of the day, I was like, how am I going to answer this question? When I woke up this morning, I was thinking about this, and I was like, I don't know. It's so hard. Everything's so hard. But then as I started writing the musings in my mind, I had a long list. I ended up having a long list. And I think that's what comes from organizing, is that organizing itself is the antidote to all of this, right? Organizing is about being in relationship. It's about community. The fascist project is to disconnect us. That's the entire, right? The idea is to make us disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from our communities, and disconnected from each other. And so the more we can be in relationship with one another, that itself is an act of resistance. And every time we do it at JFRED, every single time, I'm filled. It fills me up every time. And I think the same goes for everyone who's coming around to whether it's an action or a meeting or a training. Hundreds of members are daily taking action with JFRED, and that is just that I know is keeping us going. So is stepping into risk, stepping into leadership, learning new things together, and just being unafraid. But you're only able to be unafraid when you have the backing of your community. And so I think some of it has to do with, courage is contagious. We know this. And so when we see other people step in and other people step up, it does something for me personally. I have had the experience of being personally afraid and stepping back, and then I hear someone speak out, and it does to me, myself, well, I know I'm supposed to be the one who's out there stepping up, but sometimes it's really scary, right? So I think every single time, someone taps in and you're tapping out, you just want to give gratitude for that. You want to be able to take it in and receive that courage, and then you want to, take that and run with it. So I think that's a big piece of it. Being able to articulate what you're for is part of what gives me joy and allows me to keep going, right? We know that the other thing about the fascist agenda is that, or Trump's agenda, or whatever, what the powers currently in place, is that they know people have real suffering, real grievance. There's real reasons why people are angry and upset and voting for these dangerous and divisive policies. We also know that these dangerous and divisive policies are not going to bring them that, respite from that suffering. We know that they don't have the answers. They just have preyed on people's, grievance. And so I think the other thing that gives me joy and keeps me going and despair is the ability to articulate that future. We just did a Seder in the streets. I'll end with this story. So every year we try to really bring Passover into the streets. It's the story of liberation, right? So it's a great opportunity for us to sort of be out there loud and proud as Jews, and also as people organizing for a better future. And the themes are too juicy. You can't not, right? So we do it every year. And this year we were able to and I see, our organizers are back there, so I'm just waving to our organizers who did an incredible job pulling together this vibrant, colorful two-part Seder where we started with naming all of the dispossession in New York City, right? We started in Columbus Circle, and we were like, we're right here in Columbus Circle, right? Dispossession, and we could see Central Park, where there was other, dispossession of the Black community there, dispossession of indigenous communities here in New York. We have ongoing dispossession with gentrification, with these, multi-million-dollar, sky rises. So much dispossession in one place, so much inequality in one place. So we can see that, the current sort of slavery-like conditions or unfree conditions, and we can step into the future together. And so our Seder in the streets this year had a really powerful naming of all that exploitation. And then we marched through the streets with our music and our art, and we went to Central Park, and we sat down, and we walked through literally a portal. Our artists, the artists of JFRED's community, built a portal in Central Park where we walked through, and when we got to the other side of it, it was 50 years from now, and we were living in a free New York, in a free world. And we were able to like just imagine what that is. And and then have a community meal and sing some songs and do some interactive activities and interpretive dance together. And it was wild and wacky and weird and wonderful. And so those are the moments that keep us going, and that's what we need more of, and we're gonna need that to get through these times. So, buckle up, find your people, let's do this. I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was incredible, Audrey and Ava. Thank you so much. It's award time. Here we go. So we are so honored to welcome to the stage Neil Rosenstein, president of the Puffin Foundation, without whose support none of this would be possible. Neil, would you come on up?
The view from up here. Thank you, Shanta. It is truly humbling to follow all of those wonderful speakers, conversations of the folks that have come before. The honor is really all ours, and we're so happy for your presence and your contributions so far. And what a pleasure it is to be joining everybody else here as well this afternoon to recognize and to celebrate the ongoing and vitally powerful work of JFREJ community. I have the privilege, the honor, to talk a little bit about the history of the prize, and you've seen some living history of the prize right before this of 4 or 5 folks, and also why we made this choice this particular year. As folks know, this award honors the sacrifices and pays tribute to the men and women who volunteered to fight fascism in defense of the Spanish Republic. And so each year we honor outstanding individuals or organizations who've excelled in promoting and protecting human and civil rights at home and abroad. And in all the years of the prize, I think this year is probably among the most important one yet, and the most crucial one that we face. The first award of the ALBA Puffin Prize went to crusading Spanish magistrate Baltasar Garzón, who fought to bring Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet to justice and tirelessly worked to expose the horrors and abuses and crimes of the Franco regime at home in Spain. Since then, we've recognized the work of human rights champions who focus their efforts in a wide variety of fields and also tactics. Healthcare providers, like my brother's keeper, who reach out to the LGBT community and more in Mississippi and beyond. Immigration activists and advocates like United We Dream, working to protect and lobbying to protect dreamers and others. Anti-racist and anti-fascist heroes and healers, like Brian Stevenson and Indigenous Women Rising and Life After Hate. Crusading researchers and academics and forensic anthropologists, like Kate Doyle and Freddie Pericelli, past recipients, rooting out secrets of atrocities and U.S. complicities in government files and in graves. Lifeguards, actual lifeguards, and rescuers and lifesavers who rescue immigrants and refugees on the waters of the Mediterranean and in the deserts of our southern border. And as you've just heard, youth activists like Ava of 18 by Vote working to ensure students' right to vote and continuing now to do so. This year, the Civil Rights Committee of ALBA and Puffin had an especially difficult choice. And it's one that took us a long time to make the decisions for. And we wanted to recognize the onslaught against civil and human rights here and abroad, and we wanted to focus on a group that was actively committed to the day-to-day organizing that's necessary in the fight against authoritarianism and fascism. One that was mobilizing in their own community as well as reaching out to all and to others. And I'd be remiss, I think it was touched on a little bit, if I didn't disclose how important JFREJ was to me as a devout atheist Jew. To find out about them in the early 90s. Like so many others, it fortified and validated my own value-driven definition of what it meant to be Jewish. Indeed, JFREJ is fueled by a vision of radical diasporism, rooted in justice and compassion, an old world Bundism, of which I'm very proud my grandmother and grandfather were part of the Bund in Poland. And they've done it through deep canvassing, through lobbying, through educating, through celebrating. It sounds like that Seder, for example, a good example. Protesting, marching, and organizing as a truly grassroots and member-driven organization. And in a way, with today's award, we're not really recognizing JFREJ community as an entity and organization. Of course we are. But also the normal folks that are often the true heroes of the struggle against tyranny and for the basic rights we're all entitled to that make up their membership as well. With the rights of so many under assault in our own country, the efforts of JFREJ community, we determined, are more important than ever. JFREJ and its volunteers offer a profound example of an effective force dedicated to shining a light on the actions of those who would attack and demonize rather than protect or show compassion. We're honored by their actions and their acceptance of this award, and I'd like to bring back Audrey to the stage, and I think Mark is going to join us as well to present this year's ALBA Award. But first, some remarks from Audrey.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice community, I want to start by expressing my sincerest gratitude to both ALBA and the Puffin Foundation for this incredibly generous and distinguished award and recognition. When Mark called, I was deeply moved to learn about the award itself, never mind that we were being honored with it. As a lifelong organizer and a student of history, I knew enough about the brigades to know that JFREJ at least aspires to organize within the tradition that they so distinctly represent. But I've taken the last month, as the nerd that I am, to do a deeper dive into that history. And I have been profoundly inspired by it, incredibly touched, in addition to being overwhelmed with how resonant it all feels. Thank you for all you do to preserve their memory and honor their legacy. The courage and fortitude the brigades exemplified is desperately needed today. They saw the writing on the wall and didn't wait until the powers that be caught up with them to take what J. Edgar Hoover preposterously described as premature anti-fascist action. They dedicated their lives, their literal lives, to wake the world up. Their clarity and commitment is a beacon for us today as we do everything in our power to push back the forces of fascism in our backyard. They knew, as we are currently and frighteningly experiencing, the best antidote to fascism is to be perennially premature in staving it off. As we've already discussed, at least a third of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade members were Jewish, and a third hailed from New York City, I believe. The fact is that Jewish New Yorkers have helped power social movements for over a century, from local labor fights to freedom riders, from the Abraham Lincoln Brigade to Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. We are honored to be in that legacy. JFREJ community is the home of the Jewish left in New York. From day one, our project has been both rooted locally in New York and tied to a vision of global solidarity. Our first public event in 1990, raise your hand if you were there, was to welcome Nelson Mandela to New York City, when establishment Jewish organizations shamefully refused, citing his solidarity with Palestine as a threat to our community. JFREJ's founders in this room had the moral clarity to reject that cowardice and to carve out a political home for Jewish New Yorkers who understand that none of us are free until all of us are free. And so 35 years later, we continue to do what we see as our part in a much bigger project. We organize Jewish New Yorkers alongside our neighbors and allies for a New York where all communities have the freedom to truly thrive. We aim to transform New York from a playground for the wealthy few to a real democracy for all. We believe it is possible for everyone to have the care we need, a roof over our heads, healthy food on our tables, and dignity in our workplaces, and space in our lives, importantly, for art and culture and joy and community. The world we're building, actually, Neil, you spoke to this, and I'm so glad you did, because you brought in radical diasporism specifically in our relationship to the Bund. And so what that means for us is we believe that there is no justice just for Jews, and there's also no justice that would erase us. We're part of a long history of Jews who reject supremacy and nationalism of all kinds, and we refuse to hide, make ourselves small, or apologize for any part of who we are. We also know the only way to achieve that vision of Jewish life is to organize for human rights and democracy, shared prosperity and pluralism wherever we live. In New York, it means we work on the issues that affect all New Yorkers: housing, healthcare, police violence, immigrant and worker justice, always in coalition with other organizations across the city. Because for us, the idea of collective liberation is not just a slogan, it's a daily embodied practice of solidarity rooted not in charity, but in authentic mutual interest. We are also clear that dismantling anti-Semitism needs to be part of any serious project of the left, just does. And we understand how it functions, how dangerous it is, and how it interacts with other oppressions to keep us all down. And so we are committed to fighting it, and the white Christian nationalist movement that brought Trump to power is itself anti-Semitic, in addition to being all the things: patriarchal, misogynist, racist, and xenophobic. We all know this. And that is why this administration's brutal crushing of dissent under the false flag of Jewish safety fills me and my fellow JFredgers with shame and rage. It's why we organize to interrupt the bad faith and often patently false accusations of anti-Semitism being deployed to dismantle our universities, detain and deport student leaders, and tear apart our movements. We have organized since October 2023 for a permanent ceasefire in Israel-Palestine. We have also organized in the horrific and unspeakable months since then for an arms embargo and an end to the genocide in Gaza. Sorry. Rising fascism here and ongoing genocide there are connected. The forces that paved the way for the cruel wreckage of our conditions did not begin on November 5th or October 7th, respectively. In these times, we are called to make the same choice the Lincolns made. It is up to us to act. We must refuse to comply with forces that seek to dominate and destroy. We must protect the front line of the struggle against repression with all of our might. Right now, the front lines are trans youth fighting for the right to simply exist. Our immigrant neighbors, including the thousands languishing in ICE detention or being tortured in a concentration camp in El Salvador. Professors and students, victims of the new McCarthyism, especially immigrants like Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Ozturk, and Mohsen Madawi, who've been targeted for speaking out for Palestine. As their courage has shown us, it is never too early to stand for what's right, and it is also, to all of you, never too late, as we know, to join the fight. This generous award is both an honor and a call to action, to face the time ahead with courage and conviction, to remain in principled struggle together, to learn from the past, and to meet the deadly onslaughts of the authoritarian, billionaire, techno-fascist, racist, fear-mongering front with more democracy, more internationalism, more organizing, more solidarity, more humanity, more art and culture and joy and community, and more commitment to the world we need and deserve. Anti-fascist always. See you in the streets.
I'll read what the trophy says. Abraham Lincoln Brigades and Puffin Foundation proudly grant the 15th ALBA Puffin Award for Human Rights Activism to Jews for Racial and Economic Justice Community in recognition of their work as a grassroots organization and the home of New York's Jewish left to transform New York from a playground for the wealthy few into a real democracy free from all forms of racist violence.
And this trophy says the exact same thing. So you can choose on the wall and or on your desk. Anyway, I just want to close. Jack Meyer-Hoffer, who was the chair of the Human Rights Committee, was going to had a canceled flight, so he couldn't make it in, unfortunately. So on his behalf, I wanted to do a very quick closing. I'll just be very brief, and we really appreciate everybody coming. I'm Mark Wallum. I'm the executive director of ALBA, and one of the absolute... And one of the pleasures of this job is to get to call the recipient of the Human Rights Award. And it was great. And I called Audrey, and she thought I was trolling her. And it was great. And I thought, this is, I knew I had a smart cookie on the line, because she had to go to the website, and I offered to give her my number, and... But I also thought how sad that she also had to have the suspicion. But it was great. It was an absolute joy. And then we convinced her that it was true. Right. So anyway, thank you to Jack. I wanted to acknowledge Jack because he was going to do the closing, but Jack and his committee do a lot of hard work every year on this selection process. So some of those members are in the audience. So thank you to all of them. I wanted to acknowledge also Maria Ojeda Hernandez, who is our vice chair and is with us and is the chair of the program committee, who does a lot of work on these events as well. I want to say thank you to Shanta Sussman for stepping in as MC on rather short notice. Thank you so much. Now we've got food and we've got open bar, so please stay. All right, everyone, thank you. Thank you so much.
With JFRED for 15 years. This connection to ALBA feels like the most kismet moment I think of my 15 years in the organization. I feel like JFRED and ALBA have such aligned missions and orientations, and the fact that this incredibly important organization with its commitment to anti-fascism in this moment is recognizing JFRED's work to fight fascism and build democracy and be part of the fight, the generations-long fight to build the democracy we've never seen. And here we are in this moment where fascism is so clearly on the rise. The importance of the lessons of the brigades could not be more timely, and we are deeply, deeply honored to be part of this community today. It fills me with pride, with joy, and truly with humility, because I look up to this community very, very profoundly. And to actually pick up and go across the world to fight fascism in another country, and how it was so clear to them that they needed to take action. That is the kind of clarity that we need today. I'm overwhelmed thinking about the choice that they made and the sacrifices that they made. And then for them to come home and to be treated as persona non grata when they returned is, it's the whole history of America is written in the lives of these brigadiers. And so solidarity across borders is what we need, and we need it desperately now. When the brigades were living through that history, they made a choice not to cozy up to power, but rather to confront it. And I think we have to do the same thing today.